Welcome to Carl's Corner, where the block stays hot. Sticking to the Louisiana reference, today I have a special guest and someone I've known for about 25 years. I first met Marcus Fizer as he was a freshman at Iowa State University, the first McDonald's All-American to attend Iowa State. I was a manager on the ball team that year after having completed my varsity track and field experience. But we want to go into all the accolades that Marcus acquired while at Iowa State, getting drafted to the NBA and eventually finishing his pro career overseas. But before I start, I want everyone to know that I gave him the name Hollywood Fizer. So you might hear me call him by his nickname, Hollywood. And so we want to welcome Hollywood and thank you for being on here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. I appreciate this opportunity. Definitely honored. It's been 25 plus years,
Yeah.
a fast 25 years. I mean, I came to Iowa State in '97,
Yeah.
so it's been 25 years since I got drafted in 2000. So it's been plus. But anytime speak of you, speak highly of you, speak my wife. I told her this morning. I said, I'm gonna be on a podcast with Carl. She's that's the guy who gave you that nickname, Hollywood, right? She hates it. She hates it.
That's it, huh?
That's a
No,
moniker
I can't come up with nothing new. That's all I know, guys.
that's a moniker she's always hated. She's done, a tremendous job to get me out of that Hollywood mentality for some years now. I think her and the kids helped that. But I definitely, love to give people their flowers while they're still here. And I definitely appreciate, brother, everything that you did for me. Coming in as a freshman, there's a lot of uncertainties that I, had about myself, things I didn't understand, a lot of confidence that I didn't have, even being a McDonald All-American. But you really, really changed that mentality. I think giving me that nickname Hollywood really helped me understand, the kind of mentality I had to have being, a D1 basketball player and then being at Iowa State. And it really helped me change, even though I didn't go around the campus being, a Hollywood type player or
No,
acting a
that
certain
wasn't
way
me.
and things like
That
that.
wasn't me.
It just really gave me the confidence that, I found a total stranger that didn't know anything about me that showed confidence in me that, gave me a little bit extra boost as a, 17, 18-year-old kid that was coming into school. So I definitely appreciate everything that you've done for me during that time. We've, stayed close throughout the years. We've had debates back and forth, about
We're
sports
gonna
and
have
all of
those here in the
that.
future as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But to still be here, it's a blessing, man.
Yeah, dude.
Um, I tell people all the time, let me turn that off. I tell people all the time when people ask about different experiences and things that I've gone through in life, and I tell them, man, listen, I'm blessed, even with the ailments and stuff that I'm dealing with post playing career, whatever, I'm blessed. I mean, Kobe Bryant is not here, and that really, really, full stops people to understanding. Someone who's amassed 700, $800 million in his career, went his entire career just hard nosed trying to be successful, and then the moment he got to the chance to be able to sit back and relax, God called him home. So when I think about things like that, that's been over 5 years now.
Mhm.
Um, when you think about stuff like that and how blessed and how grateful we are, I just, definitely welcome each and everything that comes about in life every single day. A lot I don't understand, but at the same time, I'm smart enough to understand I'm not supposed to understand everything, and I just, be grateful and just pray to God the next morning I wake up and I can do it all over again.
Word, word. Well, so let's kind of start give people who might not know you or might not know where you came from, how you became McDonald's All
Right.
American. Let's just start with you in high school, then your career at Iowa State, some of the things that some of the accolades that you acquired, and then finish with your pro career. So just kind of
Well,
give
yeah,
us a little background with high school.
yeah, gotcha. So originally born and raised in Detroit, spent time back and forth from Louisiana to Detroit. A lot of my family, the Fizers, are from Louisiana, so I had a lot of family down there. And once things just started getting real bad in Detroit, I wasn't a street kid or anything like that. I felt it was better for me to move back to Louisiana with my older brother that was living down there at the time. And, a smaller, slower town, safer town, obviously than Detroit, Michigan.
Mhm.
So I went back there my freshman year, and my parents stayed in Detroit, so I couldn't play my freshman year, so I had to sit out the entire year. My guardian parents now, Robert and Sheila is my mom's first cousin. They took me in, and that's who I've been living with since I first went back to Louisiana. And just that freshman year, not being able to play, I was able to get a lot of practicing in, understand, schooling a little bit differently, the environment and all of that. Then I played 3 years at our Arcadia High School. Was able to have, a lot of success. Went to 2 state championships. Unfortunately, lost both of those, about 1 and 2 points at the end of the game to Southern Lab High School, which, is a laboratory high school of Southern University. So, they pretty much, those were during the days where you couldn't recruit, but they were recruiting. But
They were doing it.
right, a good experience. Owed a lot of success of my career to my AAU coach, Michael Theus. He took us everywhere, and like everywhere. I had my driver's license early, younger than a lot of the other players, and so he was in one van, I was in the other, and I'm talking about to Boston, Cocoa
Wow.
Beach, Florida. I mean, Indiana. We were driving everywhere, and just giving us a lot of opportunities that we probably weren't able to get in smaller towns in that area. And for that, I had a lot of success. I was able to be blessed enough to be one of the 24 that was on the McDonald All-American team in '97. Um, Ran into Beverly Floyd early in my freshman year in high school. Fell in love with Iowa State before I became any kind of a basketball star. She gave me a media guide, read the media guide, fell in love with Iowa State. It was, something that you can hope for and shoot for. And once I became, ultimately a McDonald All-American, all the different options of different schools opened up, but my heart was where it was.
And before you keep going, just
Yeah,
for people who don't know, Beverly Floyd is Tim Floyd's wife.
yes, yes,
Okay, so just
right,
and Tim Floyd, we might get there, we might not, but Tim Floyd was the coach at Iowa State, but eventually ended up becoming the coach of the Chicago Bulls the
right,
year after they dismantled the Jordan and Phil Jackson led team. So keep
right.
going. So
Right. So with that, she just told me, my husband is a college coach, and she had a media guy with her. My mom was a caregiver at the nursing home that her mother was at, and so it was just by chance. It was a lot that was looked into in terms of recruiting violation. And I was like, when I met Beverly, I was nowhere near being recruited as a freshman. So fell in love with Iowa State, became the first McDonald All-American there, and pretty much the rest is history. Came to Iowa State with no real concept of what to be in life, what was going to happen. Took that chance and,
what
had a
was the
great
recruiting
village.
process like before you get into what it was like at Iowa State? What
Mhm.
was your recruiting process? Did you know you were going to Iowa State, or did you consider some other options? Because when you're one of the top 24 players in the country, and even
Mhm.
when you're at the game playing with those other guys, people talk about where they're going, maybe
Right.
hooking up, playing at the same school. Did you know you were coming to Iowa State, or were you considering other options?
Well, Iowa State was always at the forefront of my heart. I
Mhm.
considered other options. Um, Coach John Thompson at Georgetown,
Mhm.
Coach Cheney at Temple,
Right.
Coach Haskins at Minnesota. A couple of my AAU coaches were a couple of my AAU teammates had gone there. Um, One guy before is Terrence Simmons, and then Nick Sinville actually ended up going after me. So we kind of were trying to possibly do that.
Shout out
Villanova.
to John Thompson, John Cheney, and Haskins, three
Mhm.
black coaches that I watched coming up. I watched Cheney and Calipari go at it at Temple UMass as a high school and early college student. And John Thompson obviously was the first black Division I head coach to win a national championship. So as a young kid in my house, that was a big deal for us.
Right,
Georgetown
right.
national championship. So shout out to those guys and seeing something in you that caused them to want to recruit you. I'm sorry.
Coach,
Keep going.
Coach Cheney, Coach Thompson ended up getting sick, so he couldn't make a home visit. Coach
Mhm.
Cheney ended up coming to home, and my mom cooked him this whole big dinner, catfish and everything, and he couldn't get back to the airport fast enough to call Coach Thompson and let him know. He actually called Coach Floyd too, to
Okay.
let Coach Floyd know about it. So, as Tim does, he just snuck into Ruston and drove down to the house, just unannounced or whatever. And then my mom cooked the dinner for him and everything. But Iowa State was always at the forefront of my heart. I visit Iowa State first, and then I told Coach Floyd I owe Coach Haskin at least the respect to go to Minnesota to visit there. So that next week I went there. But I actually told him, I said, my heart is here, and I'm probably about 99% certain that I'm gonna, come here. And so visit Iowa State, had a good time. Charlie Bill was on the recruiting trip with me, who I eventually went to Michigan State. Was on that Michigan State team. But we just had a good time. But I just knew Iowa State is where I wanted to be, and that next week after I came back from Minnesota, I announced that I was going to Iowa State.
And we're glad you did too. So let's talk about that freshman year, because I remember specifically your freshman year, and the recruiting class that you guys had, and to the point where it would have been the second best in the nation if we got Gerard Henderson and CJ Bruton out of
Right.
Indian Hills. Those two didn't come. And the number one recruiting class for anyone who's a historian was Duke with Burgess, Brand, and Battier.
Right.
They had the best recruiting class, and you guys are going to be considered second with those other two guys. You didn't get those guys, but here you guys had a mix of, and I remember because as a manager, I'm looking at all these new kids Floyd had bought in, and I'm like, whoa, this is some of these kids, if they grow up quickly, can be pretty good. And knowing we had you in the middle, yeah, this could be special. So talk a little bit about that freshman year. It didn't go the way we planned.
Right.
I remember having a conversation at Drake University, our first away game that year, already talking that I believe Floyd was not coming back. But just talk about that freshman year and how it didn't quite go the way we planned, but what it set you guys up for the future.
Right. It was real disappointing. To mention, names like Gerard Henderson. Gerard and I had known each other for years. I had been AAU teammates in Louisiana, so that was a big ordeal for me to get him to Iowa State with me. The little story behind that, like, this is back in the day where we used to have to go to the library and see the newspaper clippings.
Right.
I would have 45 points this game with 38 or 50 points, and I look down at the bottom. I said, no, I do not see. Who is this 65 and 62? And I'm like, who is this Gerard Henderson dude? I said, I have to find out who it is. And so I called my AAU coach. I said, man, listen, he's from Haynesville, Louisiana. I said, I'm going to drive to Haynesville and just ask around who's Gerard Henderson, because I got to get him on the team with us. Made that drive there. We talked, became good friends. He started playing with us in AAU, and we tried to get him there to Iowa State with us. But there's a lot of different things what happened in the background with that. He ended up having a good career at Louisiana Tech. He was able to stay closer to home, but not getting him and CJ was a huge thing. Me and Marcus Jr. was actually speaking the other day about that. I was like, man, we had two guards that didn't go to Iowa State with us that was supposed to, especially one that was, a guy that was from overseas, from Australia.
Two-time,
right?
Australia,
Right.
two-time national JUCO champion at Indian Hills in Iowa. And even as you talk about how different things were, they said this kid was already a pro and couldn't play, but they let him win two national championships at Indian Hills, but then couldn't come to Iowa State. So I remember how angry I was. It just,
I was really upset.
That was back in the day.
And so I was, there as a freshman. We had some incoming guys that, we all were learning to, learn each other, different things like that. And it was just a hard and difficult year. The only thing in my mind was about scoring. When I sit and think, like, now, there's a lot of things that I felt like I could have done in my career as a 46-year-old man now. But as a 17, 18-year-old kid, the only thing you think about is scoring.
The
People say
ball
all
at home.
kinds of different stuff about, how did that guy get drafted? He only averaged, 8 points a game because you don't know the game. You don't
Right.
understand the facets and different things that goes along with the game. So um that's the only thing I thought that I was supposed to do, come in and score and not think about the whole facets of everything that made the team better. And we struggled, had a lot of get good, top pros like Ray LaFrance and Paul Pierce and Corey Carr
Yep.
down at Texas Tech. Now, if you don't remember
Yeah,
these names,
remember those guys.
man,
Yeah.
these guys were super, super tough.
Brian
So
Skinner at Baylor.
right, and Big Brian Skin, like
Yeah, I
those, they
remember
had
those
some
guys.
good teams
Yeah.
that were very, very dominant. Even with Coach Sampson down in Oklahoma,
Oklahoma.
you
Yeah.
know, Big Wiley, I forget his first name. I mean, they just had some mature teams that I
Yeah.
needed that much freshman year. Second year got a little bit better. Brought in some shooters. Mike Nurse came in, a couple other guys came in that helped us, and we still kind of struggled, to a 500 record, which was better than the record we had before.
Oh, yeah,
Then that
true.
third year, everything just really turned around with those acquisitions that Coach Stacy was able to bring in, like Jamal Tinsley and Kentrell Horton.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that last year run.
Mm.
You had Cantrell, obviously Jamal Tinsley, who was another NBA player that helped to really get you guys over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anchored by you and Stevie and Paul Shirley, guys who had been through the trenches and been
Right, right.
times. Talk about that Elite Eight run. And just that season in general, because you put up stats. You guys were, I think at that point you were an All-American, and yeah,
Mm.
talk about it. Yeah, just
Well,
let people know what you guys accomplished and how that felt and what that run was like.
well, the biggest key to it all, which is a lot different than now, is having a coach like Larry Stacey, who was, Tim Floyd times 10 in
Right.
terms of, the intensity and everything like that.
Yeah, hard
But
on you.
allowing us to be coached, hard nosed coached.
Right.
Practices were hard. Practices was hard and made the games easy. It made the games be that much more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, one of the teams that's in the Final Four now, Coach
Right.
Kevin Sampson, his team is
Yeah.
down there, hard-nosed players that, care about each other and understand, the value of what it is to win as a team.
Mm-hmm.
After losing to Drake early in the season and then Cincinnati, playing Cincinnati so well in Hawaii, I knew we had something special then. Even before then, like I saw flashes of Jamal Tinsley, but it was like this guy's different. This guy's
Yeah.
really, really different. And putting him at the one and then Mike at the two, where he could open up and really be, we knew he was a shooter, but it's the difference of having a knockdown shooter that doesn't have to handle the ball and tired of everything like that, because he started, his range started opening up a whole lot more. And then when you get the
Shout
guy
out
like
to shout out to Brooklyn and Jamal Tinsley. Shout out to New Jersey and Mike Nurse, East
Joe
Coast.
Book, and then another shout out to Contrell. I mean, when you have
Yeah,
a guy that's,
Atlanta, Georgia.
I mean, that's playing the 2, 3, and sometimes the 4, that's you know, as strong as me, can knock down a shot, can handle the ball, can post.
Yeah.
Man, it was once we came back from Hawaii, I was like, yeah, we about to go on the run. I really, really felt like we were going to go on the run, but the focus was winning the national championship.
Right.
I saw that trophy early in the Sports Illustrated magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted that trophy so bad. I wanted to bring something different to Iowa State that I had never, been in, and it wasn't the
Never even
focus of
sniffed
just putting
anything
up
that
numbers.
close. Yeah.
It wasn't about putting up numbers. It was about just having a winning season, and
Mm-hmm.
we were clicking, on all cylinders. We knew what we were going to do in practice. We knew what we were going to do in traveling. We knew what we were going to do. I mean, it was just like clockwork, to see how everyone understood, all the way to, one of the first guys coming off the bench was Brandon Hawkins, who was a freshman at the time, who gave us a lot of big minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We anticipated Martin Rancic.
Yep.
Rancic is
Shout
what
out
they,
out to Mark.
properly pronouncing his name now. But he had some injuries early, and even having him be a part of the team, I think we would have been a whole lot more dynamic. But when I watch the NCAA now, and me and my son was talking, you really don't sit and think like we lost to Drake, we lost to Cincinnati,
Yep.
then we lost to Oklahoma and Colorado in double and triple overtime, or whatever the overtimes were that we lost, and then we lost to Michigan State. So when you think about like those only 5 games, we should have beat Drake for sure. But that was a butt kicking. I guess we probably needed.
A little humble pie every once in a while.
Right, absolutely, to understand, and it's not that we underestimated them. It just wasn't the focus. I think, did we score 50 points the game? Like either team, I think it was 48-44, something crazy.
Yeah.
And then to run into a Cincinnati team that was number 1 in the nation with Kenyon Martin, those guys, that was a big shock of but we played well. If we would have gotten them later in the season after we figured ourselves out, it would have been a whole lot different than to lose 2 Big 12 games on the road in overtime. You understand that the 12 is what the 12 is. And then we lost to the eventual national champion. So when you think about it in totality of everything and how everything went to only lose 5 games and to win 32, that's a pretty successful season.
Yes, it is. Well, and I'll never forget it because by then, that year, I'm living in Baltimore, watching you guys compete against Michigan State and Mateen Cleaves, who was the point guard for that team for Tom Izzo, and beat you guys to go to the national championship. I think you guys were in Michigan. That game was in Michigan. Yeah. So they were not too far from Ames, but they played in their backyard. So, but it was, I remember you, Stacy, getting thrown out at the end. There was still a chance to win, a couple double technicals. And then it just got away from us. And then Michigan State ended up winning the national championship that year. But we as Irish State fans and alum remember how special that run and that team was. And I don't think it's been matched yet. There's been no team to make the Elite Eight from Iowa State, and we're talking 24 years ago.
Yeah,
2000.
I've seen some teams that I thought should have been or came close in my mind. I thought this team right here this year was really early on.
The season they kind of struggled a little bit, but
struggled a ton.
In the season, we thought this might be that squad.
Right. Yeah. Right. That loss to Auburn was like that Cincinnati loss in Hawaii. And I was like, and I told my wife, I was like, this team right here may be special. There's some kids on the team that's from Vegas that I've coached against since they were little kids. Nice. That I've seen, Keyshawn Gilbert and Josh Jefferson. I've seen these kids grow up. I've coached against them. I've lost games against them. So I was like, these kids can really, really have a chance. And then we got to the meat of, the Big 12 conference, and things started to be like, but, still shout out to everything that TJ has been doing, has done with the squad and everything like that. But for us, it's just, I don't think, I told, some of the guys on the podcast that I'm on, I don't even remember paying attention to the rankings and anything like that. I paid attention to not losing. Right. I didn't want to lose. Even losing to Oklahoma, to Oklahoma and Colorado, I don't think I even at this point realized that until we lost to them. Like, we had only lost to Cincinnati and Drake. It just was, ball game, who played, who comes out, win this one, move to the next, win this one, then move to the next. So it was just a story of what we were focused on, how we were focused on doing things, and just winning ball games.
Right. So now you completed your run at Iowa State. You guys obviously had some memorable years, but now college career is behind you. Talk about what happened after you left Iowa State.
Well, just now you're in the business world of things. In the business side of things, where fans don't understand the aspect of what it changes and goes into. Like, I see people all the time talking about, Joel Embiid is not playing, or this, or low management or whatever. And what people don't understand is, if the trainers or the doctors say coach, he's not going or he shouldn't go, it don't matter how much we want to, he's not going.
Not gonna let it.
He's not going to play because, I mean, they're the ones that paying them money and stuff like that. So it turns into a different aspect. You're a younger player that's coming into the league, may have a family that's first just now establishing. I'm playing with guys like, Charles Oakley and Antonio Davis, who, that's been in the league for years and have
15
been
years, yeah.
been married and have kids. It's just a different dynamic of understanding the approach of being a pro, playing, how to manage your time, and all of that. I didn't work out for the Bulls. They had Elton Brand there. I was slated to go 3 to the Clippers or 5 to the Magic. Even though I was working out and training in Chicago with Tim Grover, my agent was from Chicago. Like the Bulls wasn't on the radar. But like you said, Tim Floyd had gone to Chicago the year before, and I was available at 4, and he took me at 4. That really spun my career, I think, a lot. Because it was a lot of trying to figure out and understand. I was drafted with about 5 or 6 rookies. I think the only guy on the team at the time was Fred Hoiberg, who was 26, 27.
Right.
So we were a
Another
lot of
Iowa
young,
State alum. Shout out to
another
Fred.
Iowa State alum. Absolutely. We were young, dumb in Chicago, instant millionaires, just, living, just trying to find your way through life.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bad basketball, It kind of reminded me of what it was in Detroit. Last couple of years, now they've gotten some veteran players in that can play. They got a guy like Cade Cunningham that's turned into a star. They're playing extremely well. Now at this year, they've had some, questionable coaches that didn't necessarily know how to handle the talent or whatever, but they're having an incredible year. But we just never really got a chance to get to that point. We lost a lot of games, got younger and younger. And just the time of how the games are now are different, where I had a little bit more talent than what was known or whatever was able to be seen. But now they just let you, full out and go. And whatever talent you have, we're going to find a way to utilize it versus, you're big and you're strong, you go down there and rebound the ball and that type of stuff. So, learn a lot, didn't learn a lot, had some questionable veterans.
For your life for all of us.
Right. Questionable veterans that came in that, helped and some that didn't. So, it was a lot of ups and downs in my career. I had a couple of knee injuries that really derailed, my career a lot. But I was able and blessed enough to get to 15 pro years out of this body, and the rest is history. Now I'm trying to pass it down to my sons.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. What you're doing now. You're passing it down. You talked about being out in Vegas and doing some coaching. So let us know what Hollywood Fizer is doing now. Living in Vegas, not Hollywood.
Just really just trying to, get as much out of life as I can possibly. When I eventually retired in 2015, when my youngest daughter was born, got into a couple of different things, whatever in life. Now, I guess I'm officially retired. Getting NBA pension and everything like that. So now life is starting to slow down to where not like I can focus more on, my sons and my kids and my family, wife and family, stuff like that. My oldest son is playing pro ball over in Germany. He just got back a couple of days ago. It's a couple of lower leagues and stuff like that I'm, now I'm focused on trying to get him back to Vegas to get you the opportunity to level up, because I think he has the opportunity in their career to play at the highest level or one of the higher levels squads in Europe.
Okay.
And Marcus Jr. is at CSI, which is a JUCO in Twin Falls, Idaho. These younger kids are dealing with a lot of, the NILs, the transfer portal, a lot of the holdbacks and stuff. So they're playing against older players and not getting, I went to college when I was 17 years old. I turned 18 at college. Now it's, 19 and 20 before these kids ever become freshmen. So then, I mean, or prep schools and the whole OTE and all of that stuff that's coming about. So that's basically it. I wouldn't say that I've turned into a house dad or anything like that, but now my wife has never had to work or, do anything like that. Never had a career. But now she's a senior manager at Barnes and Noble. She's been there for 3 years. something that she's always loved to do, go to Barnes Noble, always like reading books and things like that. So, one of the people said they noticed Diana a lot. And I told her, I said, well, you should, apply. And she's been there for 3 years and people love her and she's able to do different things that she's never been able to do. So like now I got 3 kids here that's in 3 different schools. I take them to school, I pick them up from school, and managing different businesses and stuff that we own. We've acquired a lot of businesses, a lot of different things that we're looking to do to create jobs, create different revenue. There's not much more I can do on these ankles and knees and stuff like that. So my focus is doing something to where I can, boss a little bit more and create opportunities like for, brothers, cousins and stuff like that. And, just live life for however much time, the good Lord has me here.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Let's just finish up on just seeing, this is Final Four weekend.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things. One, we'll talk about who you're picking to come out of the tournament. But you brought up NILs and some of that. Talk to me about your perspective on the state of college hoops currently.
Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I think the NCAA, dropped the. I think they didn't address the issue fast enough. They were kind of forced to, because of what Ed O'Bannon did. And, like people don't like. I said on the pod last night. Like I was one of the ones who had to sign, stating that I'm moving forward with these guys. So the guys that's coming up, that was like in 2013, 2014. We had just gotten to Vegas. I don't know if the NBA Players Association or whatever, just a mail came to the house and I opened it up and I read it. There's a couple of sheets or whatever, and absolutely happily, because of course I got sons coming up behind me, and you didn't know how soon it was going to be before them or not, or whatever the case may be. But I understood everything that was going forth with it and was okay with it. It's the gray line is so thick, but I'm happy for the kids because like we said, Tim Floyd left after my freshman year.
Yeah, left.
Not knowing that
all you guys, and then bounced,
and it then left. So I remember like it was yesterday. We got called over to the basketball office like 7 a.m, and and so now I have to make a decision. Am I going to leave the Iowa State University hanging, or if I'm going to stay committed and stay here?
And back then, we have to remember, if you transferred, you might have to sit out a year. I can't remember if a coach left, if they maybe sit out.
Still then,
you had to sit out. So now
it is so different now.
Yeah,
it is so different now.
Yeah.
I don't know what my decision would have been, if it was, you can leave if a coach leaves and you can play immediately. I think that weighed heavy on the decision. Coach Stacy had came in, we had met, had a discussion or whatever. That helped the decision of staying. And really, as a freshman, at that point, I was so young, my mindset and my mentality was, you are where you are, just, keep playing. We're building to have a better team. But, now you got to understand these kids are coming into this as looking as, a money situation, which I don't, knock at all.
I don't follow.
I mean, because you have some players that aren't going to be pros. You have some players that turn into collegiate stars that, they can get 4 years. They get this whole COVID year. They get possibly a medical redshirt year. They get a grad transfer year. So if within a 4 to 7 year span, I can make $1.23 million, then why wouldn't I do that?
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I max out that opportunity, get a degree? If I'm not going to be a pro in the sport, then now I can go coach and possibly make $500,000 to $1 million or become a head coach, and the rest is history. So it's some things that need to be reeled in a little bit. I'm currently right now, I'm reaching out to Ed O'Bannon and some other people, some things that I want to challenge the NCAA on. And then me and my guys spoke a little bit on the pod last night. I guess I came with you before we get off here. But the things that I'm concerned about is, or what I want to challenge them on is, are these kids student athletes or are they pros now?
Right.
Because back in my day, if you got $20 and they found out about it, that forfeits your amateur,
Status, yeah.
forfeited your amateur stance. Now you're a pro. So now if they're getting paid, are they pros or are they student athletes? Where's the gray line, the fine line in that? So if you got guys that are freshmen and sophomore that leaves to go to school, say in basketball, they get drafted in the second round, which isn't a guaranteed contract unless you're Bronny James.
Right. Don't get me started.
Unless you LeBron James Jr. So now they're freshmen. So Bronny leaves as a freshman. Don't get a guaranteed contract, don't play that much or whatever. Now he has 3 years of his collegiate career of eligibility left. Is that forfeited or no?
Right.
Why is it forfeited? Is it
question.
forfeited because he's a pro or what? So if it doesn't work out,
can they go back? Them,
let them go back. Why won't you let them go back? If they're playing against players that's 25, 26, and even if we put a time limit on by the age of 26 or 27, whatever you have to, whatever the case may be. But if a guy goes to, or the fact of why they got to play 3 years in college in football, and for the females, why they got to play 3 years in college, this whole maturity thing. Well, there's, some guy, you tell me that Bo Jackson wouldn't have been NFL ready after his freshman year?
NFL ready after his freshman year.
Right. So if it works out for some, it works out for some. If it don't, and I got, 3 or 4 years of eligibility left, and, I had a non-guaranteed contract. I played for 1 year, let me go back to the school. If that school is going to accept me back or whatever, you mean to tell me that if a guy has turned or a female has turned pro and has played a year, gotten that, knowledge and all that maturity in the pros, a collegiate school is not going to say, hey,
come back and help us grow up a little bit. That makes perfect sense. I dig that.
That makes totally perfect sense. So that's one of the things that I'm moving the agenda forward now. Try to reach out to the same, law group and stuff that he used, because something has to open up for, even if they get 2 years in. I got 2 years of eligibility. If I go to school as a freshman and I've played 2 years, in college, and now as 17 years, 18 years old, 18, 19, 20, and I'm 20, then I spend 1 year in the pro, 21 or maybe 22, and I got 2 years of eligibility left. Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, they 20, 22, 23, 24 years old. That's still within that same time frame.
That they're given. Yeah.
Let them, and they're getting paid in college on the pros, then why not let them come back?
Yeah, what's stopping them from coming back and playing? Everyone's getting paid right now. So
everyone's getting paid right now.
Should be what's stopping it. And if the school is willing, or any school is willing to bring them back, why not? No, that is, this first I heard of that. I love that idea. I think that makes sense. And there's no legal ramifications on why they couldn't be. Everyone's getting paid now.
Right.
So no, that's good. That's good. And that would be good for a lot of athletes that, are maybe not quite NBA ready, or might not ever be NBA ready, but they've seen it. Now they come back, and then they can still reap the benefits of the NIL deals and those things. That's awesome.
Exactly. Or set them up in the position to where they play those last couple of years and get their degree, and now they can, go get coaches. Because if you think these coaches are not making great money, come on now. Come on, that's unbelievable. If they're able to play the universities and universities are able to play the players, these coaches, everybody is winning. So let's just figure out something so everyone can win.
Everyone can win.
Right.
So who do you have winning the national championship?
I got Florida winning.
Okay.
I got Florida winning. They those quiet, sneaky teams that you hear a little bit about, but you don't hear a lot about. You've heard about
they haven't put them on the national scene like a Duke. Now I am believing Cooper might be able to pull this out, but Florida has been that squad and is defensively. I think that's going to be what it takes. They got some athletes.
They got some athletes. Clayton Jr. is shooting like Steph. He's just as a hooper, and you play, you athlete and stuff like that, and once you there's one of those there's that moment in time where, like, when you locked in, you dialed in, and you just know that rim is
It's
humongous.
like the ocean.
And he's like that. He's like that right now. And he got 2 more games to win it all. He's been playing. He's been knocking. I mean, I saw, a play last game where he got the ball inside of the arc and ran out to the 3, and he has this fade and it's like, well, why is he fading away? I'm like, that's not a fade away. Like that's his. Like your jump, and it's all in the same motion. To kick the leg, probably gonna get called for a foul for that for the next level. But now they're not calling it. But that's the motion of how the touch is, and he feels really, really good with it. Cooper Flag, he's a phenomenon that you hadn't seen in probably ever. It's kind of questionable to me how he has a twin brother that's nowhere close to being
to where he's at.
So that time, we got the Thompson twins that's in the NBA.
Yeah,
You've had a lot of NBA twins.
Lopez brothers. Yeah,
Huh?
I said the Lopez brothers.
The Lopez brothers, Stephen and Joey Graham. You've had a lot of Harvey and Horst.
Yeah,
a lot of, but even one is typically better than
the other.
So, Carlos Boozer twins.
Yeah,
169, 161, whatever the case may be. But they still on a higher level. But for him to have a twin brother, there's nowhere. For some reason that really it bothers me in my mind, because I wonder what it's going to be on the next level once you figure, is he as good as a Keith Van Horn, who was super
who was
tough.
crazy coming out of Utah? Rick Majerus, yes, went to New Jersey, played for the Nets.
Super tough. So I want to see how that transpired.
An interesting comparison, because people forget about Van Horn, and that they're kind of the same player.
Right.
I can't even say he's a little more athletic, because Van Horn was uber athletic, and Cooper gets it in. The game has changed a little bit, but that's a great comparison. I like that.
The game has changed, and that's the biggest thing that has changed between the two, is that the game has changed. What you allow Cooper to do more of, they're allowing him to handle the ball.
He facilitates a lot more. Van Horn was a post player. He was a 4.
Who can knock down a 3.
But they didn't allow him to facilitate. That's where the game has changed.
Right. So we'll see. But I got Florida. I'm big on Florida. I love Coach Sampson. I told my wife the other day, if I ever got into coaching and got the opportunity, he will probably be one of the coaches, the first people that I reach out to that I would love to coach with. But I got Florida.
Okay.
What about you?
I have Duke. I just think they're setting it up for this dude to have a remarkable run. Sometimes it's a script. But the kid has played against the best talent all year and has looked like he's the best player on the floor each and every time. So not married to anyone, but I did pick Duke to cut the Nets down when it's all said and done. So
and I wouldn't mind that. John Shire was my neighbor in Chicago, in Northbrook. For 3 years. Like I watched him in high school. Knew about him before going to Duke.
They said this kid was a beast in high school coming out of Chicago.
I tried to give him my Bentley to drive to prom, and his parents turned it down.
They said no.
When I'm talking about neighbors, I'm talking about like literally I could throw a rock from my house to his.
Okay. That's
right around the corner, same block pretty much. Nice. But I've known about John for a long time. Knew that that they were setting up at Duke for him to be.
We were all kind of shocked that's who they picked, but obviously it worked out for him.
Right. Of course, it's gonna work out there. So, we'll definitely wouldn't mind love seeing him win it all. Like you said, not married to anyone. If there's any personal favorite, it would be him or Coach Sampson. But I think Florida's that team that's gonna sneak in and shock the world like Florida and the National was a couple of years ago when they made that long, strong run.
Right, absolutely. Well, man, we appreciate you, Hollywood. I want to show you one thing though before we get off. On my wall, who's that?
Wow! Wow!
A buddy of mine before I left Iowa gave me that. Oops, sorry. A buddy of mine before we left Iowa gave me that. His father passed. Shout out to Mike Earhart. And the other one, the movers didn't put on the truck. So I had the one with Stevie on it, but you are officially on my wall in my sports lounge. So I would stay all day, every day. So I just wanted you to know, that's how deep it runs.
If I'm on a wall at any time with somebody like that guy in the back, I know I did.
You and Tiger and Jordan Spieth are the only athletes on my wall, straight up.
Where LeBron at?
Come on. Stop. We're going to bring you back to have that LeBron conversation sometime soon as we get in the playoffs or when they fizzle out. We're going to have that, we're gonna have that discussion. But man, I appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely, brother. Definitely
a joy to be around. Good heart. Love the game of basketball, and more importantly, you love your family and your wife, and it's great to see you doing your thing. And so with that, my good people, we want to thank Marcus Hollywood Fizer for joining us today on Carl's Corner. Check us out again next time, and believe me, we will have Marcus back. Marcus,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Love, brother.
All right, love you.